everyone, welcome back. So, Newborn is the kind of film that starts with a compelling idea but quickly loses its grip by trying to be something it's not. Directed by Nate Parker, the psychological thriller introduces us to Chris, played by David Oyelowo, a man whose life is permanently scarred by a traumatic past. In the opening moments, we see Chris making a baffling decision to take the fall for his troubled brother after a violent car crash, setting the tone for a story that often feels more driven by dramatic convenience than emotional logic. The film soon shifts into something more interesting. We learn that Chris spends years in prison, wrongfully accused, and forced into solitary confinement for a crime he didn't commit. Even after being exonerated, the psychological damage lingers. This early segment hints at a deeper exploration of trauma, injustice, and the long lasting effects of incarceration. There's a genuinely powerful story buried here about a man who may be physically free but is mentally imprisoned. Unfortunately, Newborn doesn't stay focused on that. Instead, it veers into familiar psychological horror territory, borrowing heavily from films like The Shining. Chris, along with his wife Tara and their son Jake, relocates to a secluded resort and things quickly spiral into paranoia. Chris starts believing that he's been watched, that his son is in danger, and the unseen forces are closing in. The film tries to blur the line between reality and delusion, but rather than creating intrigue, it often feels confusing and underdeveloped. Visually, the film has moments of ambition, surreal imagery like faceless figures, prison symbolism, and haunting dreamlike sequences, attempts to reflect Chris' fractured mental state. These moments could have added depth, especially in connecting personal trauma to broader systemic issues. But instead of building on that foundation, the film leans more into shock value and genre cliches, reducing its impact. The biggest problem lies in the writing. The characters, especially Tara, feel thin and underexplored. We are told very little about who they are beyond the roles in the story, making it hard to reconnect with their struggle. As Chris descends further into instability, the emotional stakes should rise, but they never quite land the way they are supposed to. David Oyelowo does his best to hold everything together. His performance brings a sense of sincerity and pain that the script often lacks. He manages to make Chris feel human even when the narrative around him becomes increasingly erratic. But even a strong lead performance isn't enough to save a film that can't decide what it wants to be. In the end, Newborn feels stuck between two identities, a serious drama about injustice and trauma, and a stylized psychological thriller. By trying to do both, it doesn't fully succeed at either. What could have been a powerful, thought provoking story ends up feeling uneven and at times emotionally hollow. That's it. Thank you for watching. Bye.